in my early 30s, I came out of it because we're not always in valleys. And then I found myself, the Lord led us into another part of the States, to another ministry. Man, it just looked wonderful. It looked great. We moved halfway across the country. We were there a year. Things were going great. And then the bottom fell out. And I suddenly found myself in a church pastoring where I got crossways with the leadership of the church. Not the people, but the guys who were good men, godly men. We just didn't see eye to eye over some issues. And it started to fall apart, and we had to bring in an arbitrator to fix it. It was strange, and here's what we worked out. They said, here's the deal, Steve. We want you to preach on Sundays, but don't come into the office during the week. It was like I was under house arrest. I don't want to forget this. 3 years later, we got it all resolved, and the relationships were put back together. But it was not pleasant going through this. Okay, we want you to preach, but don't come into the office. They wanted me to do nothing with the day-to-day work. Well, what do I do? Aren't you finishing that doctorate degree? Yeah. You're writing that dissertation on men? Yeah. See, I didn't know I was going to be in men's ministry for the next 25 years. I didn't know that. I didn't know I would do over 700 men's conferences in the next 2,500 years. I didn't know I'd write 15 books to men. I didn't know any of this. Why? Because I'm stupid. I'm a sheep. All I know is I have this situation, and I don't know why God's brought me halfway across the country to let this fall apart. And they said, aren't you doing that research? Just stay at home and do the research. They paid me to do my doctorate on men. I surveyed 1,000 men across the United States. And that became the basis of my research, wrote my dissertation that thick, and because I had all kinds of time. I had nothing else to do. And then a publisher heard about it and said, you ought to write a book. So I wrote a book called Point Man to Men on how to be a spiritual leader of your family. Most guys don't know how to be a spiritual leader because their father didn't show you how, because his father didn't show him, and his father didn't show him, and it's been going on for generations. So I wrote Point Man, here's how you do it, because my dad showed me, because his dad showed him. You see? Okay. So I didn't know any of this. All I know is my life's falling apart, and I've got leaders that don't trust me. I'm writing the book, and I'm praying, Lord, don't let them fire me until I finish this book. Oh, you think it's funny? It wasn't funny then. We'd have elder meetings Tuesday morning. I'd get a knot in my stomach on Mondays. And it would be there all day until I got through the elders meeting, and they didn't fire me. I'm dead serious. That's how I wrote that book in my upstairs bedroom. I finished the book. 3 weeks later, I got a call on a Tuesday morning from my associate pastor. Steve, I wanted to call you. The elders had a meeting this morning. There was no elders meeting. Yeah, there was. They didn't want you to know. I said, what? They've asked me to represent them. They want you to resign. They want you out. I said, what are you talking about? They want you gone. Now, it's interesting because God answered my prayer. I had just finished the book. And God gave me 3 extra weeks. But I still was kind of shocked. Lord, let me finish the book. Well, I just finished it, and I had 3 weeks, and now they want me out. And I said, wait a minute. He said, they want your resignation. I said, I'm not resigning. What am I going to do? He said, they don't care. They want your resignation. Well, if you don't resign, I said, what are they going to do? Well, they'll fire you. I said, you tell those guys I want to meet with them this afternoon. They refused to meet. And then I started getting hot. I said, listen, you tell those guys I want to see them this afternoon, and they better be there. I was hacked. And this is in, hey, Mary's feeding the kids. I got 2, maybe 3 kids. I don't know how many kids I had. I was stressed. This really happened. And she's hearing half the conversation. He said, Steve, they want me. I said, they're going to fire me for what? The church won't go with them. The church will go with me. Man, I'm really mature now. Hey, what did I do? Steal money? Sleep with women? They got to have a reason. Well, let's meet at 2. Just the 2 of us. We'll talk. Okay. I get off the phone. Mary said, what's going on? I told her, and I started getting hot. I started getting worked up. And in the middle of it, she said, Steve, can I ask you a question? And I said, yeah. She said, do you think God wants you here long term? And I said, no. Well, why would you fight these guys? I hate it when she does that. But it was a wise word. Why would you fight these guys? And you know what I said? I said, because I'm an idiot. That's a quote. I'm stupid. She said, you know, Steve, for the last year, every time you do a conference, you get 5 other invitations. Can you come and speak? And you have to say no because you're here. And your best friends that you've known since high school, we just saw them 3 months ago in California, said, Steve, you ought to be doing conference ministry and writing full time. The people that know you best, this is what they see for you. Why would you fight these guys, Steve? I mean, as I look at it, I see the hand of God. You just finished that book. I said, yeah, I know, Mary, but I turned down these speaking invitations. They're a year away. If I said yes today, we wouldn't have any income for a year. She said, Steve, God will take care of us. I said, yeah, I know, but how are we going to make it? That's a direct quote. And you think it's funny. Ha ha. It wasn't funny to me because I didn't know how I was going to make it. Mary had to leave and take our 2 or 3 kids or whatever they were and take them somewhere. And you know what I did? I walked the streets of our neighborhood. Nobody was out there except me. Psalm 27:2. I will cry to God Most High, to God who accomplishes all things for me. He will send from heaven and save me. And I'm crying out to God because I am panicked. I'm afraid. I don't know how I'm going to support my family. I'm not going to fight those guys. I'm going to resign. I'm not going to cause a problem. But I have no clue, and I was afraid. I didn't mind teaching on faith. I just didn't want to have to live by faith. For 2 hours, I cried out to the Lord. I came back. Mary was pulling in the driveway. We walked in the house. The phone rings. Hey, Steve, this is Tom such and such. Oh, yeah, the attorney. Because Mary, 3 years before, had been in an automobile accident. It was the other guy's fault. She had extensive injuries in her neck and down here. The doctor, who we knew from church, at some point said, listen, that insurance company is going to want you to sign off. They won't pay any bills until you sign a waiver. And you can't sign a waiver because she needs long-term treatment. I suggest you see this Christian attorney. He's a godly man. He's reputable. He's honest. You better get him to represent you. This will take a while. We went to see him. He said, this will take a while. It took a while. But on that morning, when I saw no way out, he calls me when I walk in the house after 2 hours of being panicked, and he says, Steve, I've got a settlement for you, but you and Mary need to sign it by noon tomorrow. And if someone had told me when I was walking around that morning, freaked out, that the next afternoon at 2 p.m., I'd put a check for $24,000 in my checking account, and I'd never had $10,000 in my checking account, and I would be out of work with more money than I'd ever had in my life, I wouldn't have believed it. But that's what God did. And you know why I tell that story? Because we all look like we're together, but there's somebody in here who's desperate. And you need the shepherd. And you can trust him. Now I'm still in the first verse. And I'm out of time. So let me do verse 5 real quick. In verse 5, he gives us the essentials. Food is an essential. Thou dost prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Sheep have to be fed. The primary job of a shepherd is to feed the flock. Sometimes there's drought, there's no grass. He's got to take them on a journey to find grass outside of his normal region. He might walk for 10, 12, 14 days. The sheep are behind him. They're gaunt, they're hungry, they're starting to lose strength. One morning, he's out in front. He goes up a little hill, little rise. He looks down, and there's 30 acres of green grass. The veteran shepherd will do something that a rookie shepherd will not do. If a rookie shepherd who has no experience sees the grass, he'll run the sheep right in. Not the veteran shepherd. He sees the grass, he stops, he turns, he gets the sheep, and he just beds them down. He calms them down, gets them down. By himself, he goes up over the rise, into the little 30-acre valley, and he starts walking every square foot, and he's looking for something. What's he looking for? He's looking for holes in the ground this size. Pastor Charles Slimming was in Israel in the late 1800s, early 1900s. He studied shepherds. This is where I got this. They look for holes in the ground this size because in certain parts of Israel, not all, there are poisonous snakes called adders. Adders live 18 to 24 inches below the ground. Adders will come out of the ground, nip the nose of a grazing sheep, and kill it within minutes. The telltale sign of adders is a hole in the ground this size. Now, if he sees holes in the ground, Can he not use the grass? Oh, no, he can, because he's prepared. He takes a flask of linseed oil and a little pitch and tar. He'll lubricate the hole, the lip, making sure it goes down deep. He'll lubricate every hole. After every hole has been lubricated, he goes and gets the sheep. He brings the sheep in. They see the grass. They hadn't seen it in 2 weeks. They're eating. They're happy. They're content. They're just thrilled. They're finally eating after 2 weeks. And they have no idea that 18 to 24 inches below the ground, the adders are attempting to come up out of the hole and nip their nose and kill them. But because of the wisdom, because of the foresight, because of the preparation of the shepherd, the adders and their skin up against the viscosity of the oil, they can't get out to get the sheep. And unbeknownst to the sheep are literally eating in the presence of their enemies. God has never said he will take away your enemies. God has said, I will take care of you, my sheep, in the presence of your enemies. That's what he has said to you. Why are you clapping? You're honoring God's name because of who he is. Why would you not want Jesus as your shepherd? That makes no sense. Lastly, he says this in verse 6. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all of the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So you know what this means? He's got your future secured. Watch this. I had a friend in South Carolina, pastor. Sunday afternoon, a friend said to him, hey, we're going to go flying in our little Piper Cub this afternoon. Why don't you bring your boy? I'll bring my boy. It's a gorgeous day. They met at 2 o'clock. They took off, hit the side of a mountain. My pastor friend, his 8-year-old boy was killed instantly. He was in a body cast for months. They weren't sure he'd ever walk again. He did, but it was really tenuous for a while. Now, I got a question. This says, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. What about that day? Where was the goodness and mercy and loving kindness of God? Did David know anything about pain? Did David know anything about heartache? Yes, just like you do. Why didn't David say, surely goodness and mercy will follow me most of the days of my life? When my daughter Rachel was born 34 years ago, she was so cute, I went out and bought a new camera. True story. I had an old beat-up camera from Boy Scout. So my friend Alan helped me, and I got a 35 millimeter with 3 lenses. I don't know anything about cameras, but he said it was a good deal. And I got I'm playing around with this camera. I'm standing here, and it came with a lens. It says something in Japanese. I think it says normal. Because when I stand there and I look, I see everything normally. You know what I mean? Just a normal lens. But without moving, I can reach into the bag, take this lens off, get a long, narrow lens called a telephoto, and without ever moving, I change my perspective and I can focus on a doorknob 75 yards away, and I don't see anything else. When pain and airplane crashes and leukemia and cancer and divorce hit our lives, we put on the telephoto and we focus on our pain. And we see nothing else. And God understands that. He gets that. It's okay. But there's another lens, and I think David was using this lens when he wrote this psalm. Verse 6. It's shorter, it's stubbier. When you put it on the camera, it changes your perspective. It's called a wide angle. Say, why do you think it's wide angle? Because he says, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. That's wide angle. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. You're talking eternity. That's wide angle. You know what David's saying? He's saying if the Lord is your shepherd, the shepherd is so great. Doesn't mean you don't go through pain. You will go through pain. You will go through dark and deep valleys. But he will make a way and he will deliver you. But you will get hurt and you will take some shots and some hits and some bruises. But David is saying the shepherd is so great that even the worst things that happen, even the worst thing that ever happened to you, the shepherd is so great that when you get the whole view, you see that he is so great that he takes even the worst things and he turns them for your good. Romans 8:28, and we know that God causes all things to work. He doesn't say all things are good, all things aren't good. But he causes all things to work for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. David said to his brothers, they sold him into slavery at 17. That was evil. God could have stopped it. God didn't stop it. He went into slavery, later became co-leader of Egypt with Pharaoh. And years later, he said to his brothers, you intended it for evil, but God intended it for good. And that's not only true of Joseph's life, it's true of your life. You've got the same shepherd. And I'm going to tell you something. You're going to heaven because you know Jesus. And Jesus has never lost a sheep, ever. That's the good news. The Lord is my shepherd. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. God bless you, folks.